Everybody wants to meet someone, marry them, and stay in love, happy together forever. But not everybody manages to do that, do they? So why? Well, because the secret to a stay in love, happy together forever kind of marriage is not emotion, and it's actually not commitment, it is preparation. Practice and preparation outperform promises every day. So how do you know when you have found the person that you should marry? And how do you find someone who's prepared to keep the promises that will lead to a great marriage? How do you know they're capable of doing what they will be accountable to do? Well, the answer to that's actually pretty simple. You know someone will keep future commitments by how they have kept past commitments. In other words, the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. This means when you're dating, you really ought to discount the promises that people make to you, and you ought to look more at the pattern from their past, because the paths people take trump the promises they make. So you ought to look for a pattern of specific behaviors that will let you know if they're capable of staying in love, happy together forever with you. Specifically, you need to look for the kind of character that allows that person to put the needs, interests, and desires of other people before their own. And the Apostle Paul, well, he was kind enough to give us a checklist of what that kind of character looks like. In 1 Corinthians 13, he said that kind of love is going to be patient. So it moves at your pace instead of pressuring you to move at theirs. That kind of love is kind. When that person sees you weak, they don't beat you up, they loan you their strength and they help you up. Paul said that kind of love isn't insecure. The person will celebrate your successes and they don't feel like theirs are being diminished because of it. He said that kind of love is honoring. So that just means they will treat you like you're the most important person in the room. That kind of love isn't easily angered. So they don't react in a way that's uncontrolled. They demonstrate self-control. It's a love that keeps no record of wrongs, which means they don't hold a grudge. They know how to forgive freely. And then Paul said it's a kind of love that protects and trusts and hopes and perseveres. That is the kind of character that is required to stay in love, happy together forever. So that is the kind of character that you might want to look for in a person you're dating. And if they don't have it, maybe you shouldn't pursue the relationship. Maybe there's no need to invest your time because they may be a really nice person and I'm sure they're an attractive person, but they're probably not the kind of person who has what it takes to keep the marriage promises they make. Now, here's what I know about you. You would love to meet someone who loves you that way. I mean, obviously you want them to be attractive, you want her to be beautiful, you want them to be funny or adventurous or, whatever you got on your list. But when you picture a great marriage, well, you want that kind of love. You want that kind of character. You want the two of you to treat each other every day like you're the most important person in the world. But that actually takes a lot of character. Nobody learns to mutually submit to one another naturally. And very rarely does anyone ever stumble into marrying a person who knows how to mutually submit. Now, this is where it's going to get a little uncomfortable, okay? Are you ready? If you want to find that kind of person, you have to become that kind of person because you attract who you are, not who you want. So if you met this kind of person today, would they be looking for someone like you? If the answer is no, well, you have a game plan. If the answer is no, guess what? You know what to do next. You actually should spend less time looking for the right person and more time working on you becoming the right kind of person. Because those qualities that we just talked about, that's what it takes to mutually submit to one another. So if you'll make that your standard for who you want to be, make it your standard for who you want to date, you make it your standard for how you date, well, you're setting yourself up for success. If the person you're dating doesn't demonstrate those qualities, just don't date them. If you're in a relationship with somebody who doesn't come close to this, it's going to be a tough conversation. I get that. But maybe you ought to get out of the relationship because the past is a far more reliable predictor of future behavior than any promise that your boyfriend or girlfriend or fiance is making. It takes the kind of character, patience and kindness and gentleness and forgiveness. It takes that kind of character, that kind of love to stay in love, happy together forever. Now, there's your game plan. Work on developing those character qualities. And if your partner doesn't have them, maybe have a conversation about it. Now, speaking of tough conversations, one of the things that always comes up in dating relationships is, yeah, but if character thing's good, Matt, but what about sexual compatibility? Shouldn't you know that before you're married? That's a great question. So we'll talk about that in session 3.